This is the body you've been given. Love what you've got. So I started truly loving the face I was born with. The lines I had under my eyes at age 2 have gotten deeper, but they're my lines. The broad nose I tried to lift when I was 8 by sleeping with a clothespin and 2 cotton balls on the sides is the nose I've grown into. The full lips I used to pull in when smiling are the lips I've used to speak to millions of people every day. My lips need to be full. In that moment, as I stood before the mirror, I had my own spiritual transformation, a root revival of love, which Carolyn M. Rogers writes of in one of my favorite poems, Some Mia Beauty. What I know for sure, there is no need to struggle with your body when you can make a loving and grateful peace with it. I live in the space of thankfulness, and for that, I've been rewarded 1,000,000 times over. I started out giving thanks for small things, and the more thankful I became, the more my bounty increased. That's because, for sure, what you focus on expands. When you focus on the goodness in your life, you create more of it. We've all heard that it's more blessed to give than to receive. Well, I know for sure that it's also a lot more fun. Nothing makes me happier than a gift well given and joyfully received. I can honestly say, every gift I've ever given has brought at least as much happiness to me as it has to the person I've given it to. I give as I feel. Throughout the year, that may mean mailing a handwritten note to someone who didn't expect it, or sending a great new lotion I just discovered, or delivering a book of poetry with a pretty bow. It doesn't matter what the thing is. What matters is how much of yourself goes into the giving, so that when the gift is gone, the spirit of you lingers. My friend Genevieve once left a white bowl of bright yellow lemons with their stems and leaves freshly picked from her backyard and tied with a big green ribbon on my front doorstep with a note that said, "Good morning." The whole presentation was so beautiful in its simplicity that long after the lemon shriveled, I felt the spirit of the gift every time I passed the place where the bowl had been set. I now keep a bowl filled with lemons just to remind me of that. Good morning. You may have heard about the time I gave away a bunch of cars on my show, Pontiac G6s. It was the most fun I'd ever had on TV. But before that great giveaway, I sat meditating in my darkened closet in my office, trying to stay in the moment and not get anxious about the big surprise that was to come. It was important to me to fill the audience with people who really needed new cars so that all the excitement would have meaning. I wanted the gift to be about the essence of sharing what you have. I prayed for that, sitting in the dark amongst my shoes and handbags. Then I walked downstairs to the studio, and my prayers were answered. I am a country girl at heart, having grown up in rural Mississippi where if you didn't grow it or raise it, as in hogs and chickens, you didn't eat it. Helping my grandmother pull turnip greens from the garden, then sitting on the porch snapping beans and shelling peas was a routine I took for granted. Today, my favorite day of the week in spring, summer, and fall is what I call Harvest Day. We go out to the garden to gather artichokes, spinach, squash, green beans, corn, tomatoes, and lettuce, along with basketfuls of fresh herbs, onions, and garlic. The bounty of it gives my heart a thrill. I'm in awe every time. By planting so little seeds, you can reap so much. In fact, my problem is volume. I can't eat it all, but I don't want to throw anything away that I've watched grow. Discarding food you've grown from seed feels like throwing away a gift. I readily share with my neighbors, and still, there's always more growing. All good food comes from the earth, and whether you get that food from a farmer's market, your local grocer, or your own backyard, this I know for sure. The pure joy of eating well is worth savoring. I once sliced a fresh peach that was so sweet, so succulent, so divinely peachy, that even as I was eating it, I thought, there are no words to adequately describe this peach. One has to taste it to understand the true definition of peachiness. I closed my eyes, the better to enjoy the flavor. But even that wasn't enough. So I saved the last 2 bites to share with Stedman to see if he affirmed my assessment of best peach ever. He took the first bite and said, this peach reminds me of childhood. And so that small thing got bigger, as all things do when shared in a spirit of appreciation. I still remember the first time I stepped outside my box of giving only to family and friends and did something significant for someone I didn't know. I was a reporter in Baltimore, and it covered a story about a young mother and her children who'd fallen on hard times. I'll never forget going back to their home and taking the whole family to a mall to buy winter coats. They so appreciated the gesture, and I learned how good it feels to do something unexpected for someone in need. Since that time in the late 1970s, I've been blessed with the ability to give truly great gifts, everything from cashmere sheets to college educations. I've given homes, cars, trips around the world, the services of a wonderful nanny. But the best gift anyone can give, I believe, is the gift of themselves. At my 50th birthday luncheon, every woman in attendance wrote a note sharing what our friendship meant to her. All the notes were placed in a silver box. That box still has a treasured space on my nightstand. On days when I'm feeling less than joyful, I'll pull out a note and let it lift me back up. About a year later, I hosted a weekend of festivities to honor 18 magnificent bridge-building, boundary-breaking women and a few dozen of the younger women whose way they had paved. I called that weekend the Legends Ball, and after it was over, I received thank you letters from all the young'uns in attendance. The letters were calligraphied and bound together in a book. They are among my most valued possessions, and they inspired me recently when a friend was going through a rough time. I called all of her friends and asked them to write her love notes, which I then had bound into a book. I gave to someone else in the same way that someone had given to me.